When my wife walked back into our house looking like she had just lost a fight with a bucket of green paint, my kids innocently asked, "Mom, are you a superhero now?" That was the exact moment I knew I wasn't crazy. The lies I had suspected for weeks were finally written all over her skin, literally. And let me tell you, that moment was the cruelest, but also the most satisfying confirmation of everything I had feared. But I should rewind, because this story didn't start with her turning green. It started with something way smaller, almost invisible, but sharp enough to pierce my gut. You know that feeling when the person you love most suddenly feels like a stranger? That was me, sitting at the kitchen table, watching her laugh too hard at a text she wouldn't let me see. And hey, before I go deeper into this story, let me say this. If you're into wild, true stories about betrayal and revenge, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest. Trust me, this one only gets crazier. Now, my wife had never been the type to keep secrets. She was always the overshare everything kind of person. I knew what brand of cereal she liked, what TikTok videos she scrolled through before bed, even which neighbors annoyed her the most. So when she started putting her phone face down at dinner, locking it with a passcode she'd never used before, and running off to yoga 3 times a week, I noticed. Believe me, I noticed at first. I told myself I was paranoid. I mean, people change routines. People pick up new hobbies. But when I saw a small glass bottle rolling around inside her purse, fancy massage oil, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. It wasn't the kind of thing she'd ever buy for us. And the kicker? Stuffed in the same pocket was a receipt from a hotel not far from town. A spa package, paid in cash. Damn, why hands were shaking when I saw it. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed rocks. I wanted to storm into the living room and demand answers right then and there. But instead, I zipped the purse back up and sat there in silence, staring at the wall, my mind spinning. If I confronted her too early, she'd lie. If I waited, maybe I'd get the truth. And if I was smart, just maybe, I could make sure that truth slapped her across the face the way her lies were slapping me. That night, she came home late again. She smelled faintly of perfume, not the one she usually wore, and her hair was damp, like she'd just showered somewhere else. She kissed me on the cheek and said she was exhausted from yoga. Yoga. I could almost laugh, but I didn't. I played along. I smiled, nodded, even offered her tea. Inside, though, I was burning. My chest felt like it would explode from the pressure of holding everything in. But I had to keep my cool. If I lost control too soon, she'd cover her tracks and I'd never have the proof I needed. Over the next few days, I started piecing things together. I checked her calendar on the fridge and noticed little marks on certain dates. They lined up perfectly with her late workouts. Her phone buzzed constantly when she was getting ready to leave. And when I caught a glimpse of the number on her screen, I memorized the last 4 digits. Let's just say it didn't belong to any yoga instructor. That's when my plan started to form. I wasn't going to scream or throw things. I wasn't going to break down crying or beg her to tell me the truth. No, if she wanted to lie, I'd let her. But I'd also make sure her lies showed themselves in the ugliest, funniest, and most humiliating way possible. The massage oil in her purse? That became my weapon. Not in a dangerous way, don't get me wrong. I wasn't about to hurt her. But what I did have was an idea that would leave her squirming in embarrassment while I sat back and watched the mask slip right off her face. And it all started with that tiny bottle rolling around in her bag, whispering secrets I wasn't supposed to know. After that night with the massage oil and the hotel receipt, I couldn't look at my wife the same way. Every word she said sounded like a performance. Every smile felt forced. It's crazy how once suspicion takes root, it changes the way you see everything. She wasn't just my wife anymore. She was a puzzle I had to solve. That I started small. I memorized the number that kept flashing across her phone screen and checked it against our family phone bill. There it was, hours of calls at odd times. Early mornings, late nights, times when she claimed she was at the grocery store or running errands. And the pattern? Always on the days she went to yoga. I didn't want to make wild accusations. That's the mistake most people make. They explode too soon. Instead, I decided to document everything. I started writing down dates, times, little details. Her hair done when she didn't have a meeting. Lipstick a shade darker than usual. A sudden obsession with perfume. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about showing myself that I wasn't paranoid. The more I wrote, the clearer the picture became. And it was ugly. She wasn't just lying. She was building a second life behind my back. A life I wasn't invited into. But here's the thing. I wasn't just angry. I was curious. What exactly was she telling this guy? Was she pretending to be single? Was she talking about me behind my back? Those questions kept me awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our marriage like it was some movie I hadn't paid enough attention to. Point one evening. She came home late again. I pretended to be half asleep on the couch, but I caught her sneaking into the bathroom with her purse. I waited until she went to shower, then I checked. The little bottle of oil was still there, like a secret weapon waiting to be used. That was when the idea hit me. Now, I want to be clear, I wasn't planning anything dangerous, nothing that could cause her harm. But I realized there were ways to expose her lies without even saying a word. Ways that would leave her scrambling for an explanation while I sat back and watched. And the best part? It would all be her own fault that I did some research. Late at night, when she thought I was asleep, I was on my laptop, looking up safe pranks, stage props, theatrical tricks. That's when I found something perfect. A harmless colorant that looked invisible at first but turned skin green after a little while. Safe. Non-toxic. Used in theater makeup. But oh, the chaos it could cause in the wrong hands. I ordered it immediately. 2-day shipping. When the package arrived, I waited for my chance. She left her purse in the kitchen one morning, rushing to answer a phone call she clearly didn't want me to overhear. I slipped the bottle out, poured a careful amount of the colorant inside, and shook it until it looked exactly the same as before. She would never know the difference until it was too late. That night, she was glowing with fake energy, humming as she got ready to leave for her class. I watched her put on extra makeup, spray perfume, and double-check her phone. My heart pounded as I realized the trap was set. All I had to do now was wait, and let me tell you, that wait was torture. Hours ticked by like years. I paced the living room, checked my phone, opened the fridge without really seeing what was inside. My mind raced with possibilities. Would it actually work? Would she even use the oil? Or would she somehow dodge my plan entirely? Around midnight, I heard the familiar sound of her key in the lock. My chest tightened. This was it. She walked in, her hair slightly messy, cheeks flushed, carrying herself like she had nothing to hide. She smiled at me, too wide, too bright, but I didn't smile back, because I noticed something she didn't. Just below her collarbone, near the edge of her blouse, was the faintest, tiniest streak of green. And that was only the beginning. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. That faint streak of green below her blouse. It could have been the light, or maybe some random smudge. But as she walked closer, set her purse on the counter, and brushed her hair back, I saw it again. Clear as day. A thin, shiny tint across her skin. She didn't notice it. Not yet. She was too busy scrolling through her phone, giggling at some text she quickly hid when I glanced over. I pretended not to care, but inside I was on fire. The plan was working. My chest tightened, not with anger this time, but with anticipation. I excused myself to the bathroom mirror, heart pounding, just to take a breath and calm down. Don't get ahead of yourself, I whispered. Wait, let it play out. Because if I said something too soon, she'd just run upstairs, scrub it off, and make excuses. No, I needed it to grow, to spread, to become undeniable. The next morning, I got my wish. She came downstairs already running late, hair tied up, tossing slices of bread into the toaster while checking her phone. And that's when I saw it. The green wasn't just a streak anymore. It had spread to her neck. Subtle, but definitely there. Like faint bruises, only. Neon. She caught me staring and frowned. What? She asked, running her hand over her collarbone like she could wipe it away. Nothing, I said with a shrug, biting into my toast to hide the grin tugging at the corners of my mouth. But I wasn't the only one noticing. At breakfast, our youngest daughter squinted at her mom and asked in that innocent, brutally honest kid voice, "Mommy, why is your skin a funny color?" My wife froze. She laughed too loudly, too quickly. "Oh, sweetie, it's just makeup." Mommy was trying a new foundation. Our daughter nodded but didn't buy it. Kids never do. And I nearly choked trying to hold back my laugh. That entire day, I couldn't focus on work. I kept imagining her at her yoga class, pulling out that oil, rubbing it in, watching her skin slowly turn into a glow stick. The thought made me shake with silent laughter, even in the middle of meetings. Nobody around me knew I was carrying a secret bigger than any office drama. When she got home that night, the effect was impossible to ignore. The green had deepened, crawling down her arms and peeking out from the sleeves of her blouse. She wore a scarf, despite it being way too warm outside, and layered on makeup like a painter covering a cracked wall. But no amount of cover-up could fully hide it. She avoided eye contact, slipped upstairs quickly, and didn't come down for dinner. When I knocked on the door to ask if she was okay, she snapped, "I'm fine. Just tired." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. The next day, the universe decided to have some fun at her expense. She bumped into our nosy neighbor, Mrs. Carter, while rushing out the door. Now, Mrs. Carter notices everything. And I mean everything. She gasped so loudly, I heard it from the kitchen. "Oh my, are you having an allergic reaction, dear? You're turning green." My wife mumbled something about new skincare, waved her off, and practically sprinted to the car. I had to duck behind the fridge door so she wouldn't hear me laughing at that point. It wasn't just about catching her. It was about watching her own guilt unravel her, piece by piece. Every lie she told was making her life harder. Every excuse dug her deeper. And I was just sitting there, letting it all happen. By the third evening, she was desperate. I caught her in the bathroom, scrubbing her arms raw with soap, muttering under her breath. She didn't know I was standing in the hall, listening. The sink water ran green as she rinsed and cursed under her breath. And that's when I knew she was trapped, because it wasn't just about me anymore. The green was becoming her shadow, the one thing she couldn't hide, no matter where she went or who she saw. And sooner or later, someone besides me and the kids was going to start asking the questions she couldn't answer. And when that happened, her whole little secret world was going to crumble. By the fourth day, my wife looked like she was carrying a secret she couldn't control anymore. And in a way, she was. The green tint had spread just enough to be impossible to hide, but not enough for her to admit anything. Every time she passed a mirror, I caught her glaring at her reflection, as if she could stare the truth back into submission. She started wearing long sleeves around the house, even while cooking, even while cleaning. Layers upon layers, scarves tied high on her neck. It was the middle of spring, warm, sunny, the kind of weather where people walked outside in t-shirts. And she was wrapped up like it was the middle of winter. The excuses got stranger, too. At breakfast, when the kids asked again about her skin, she said it was a new herbal treatment. When Mrs. Carter cornered her at the mailbox, she claimed she was helping test a new makeup brand. I had to walk away before Mrs. Carter could see the grin fighting its way onto my face. But her act was cracking point one evening. We had friends over for dinner. A casual gathering, just two couples we'd known for years. I thought she'd cancel, but no, she insisted everything was fine. She spent hours in the bathroom before they arrived, trying to cover every inch of her exposed skin. When they walked through the door, she greeted them with her usual over-the-top smile, pretending nothing was wrong. But under the dining room light, the faint green glow betrayed her. It wasn't glaring, not at first, but enough to make our friend's wife tilt her head and ask, "Are you okay? You look a little off." My wife's face went pale beneath the makeup. She laughed it off, waving her hand. "Oh, it's just the lighting in here." But all through dinner, she tugged at her sleeves, avoided eye contact, and excused herself to the bathroom 3 different times. I could only imagine her leaning over the sink, dabbing at her skin, panicking that the truth was bleeding through her carefully crafted mask. And I'll be honest with you, I was enjoying every second. Not in a cruel, vengeful way, but in a satisfying way. For once, I wasn't the one stumbling through excuses or feeling crazy for suspecting something. For once, the lies weren't mine to carry. That night, after our friends left, I went to bed pretending to be asleep. She stayed up for hours, pacing the floor, whispering on the phone to someone. I didn't need to hear the words to know who it was. That same number, that same voice pulling her away from the life we built. The next morning, I finally decided to take it up a notch. I casually mentioned that I had a business trip coming up. 3 nights away, out of town. I watched her face light up for a split second before she forced it back down into a neutral smile. She tried to act disappointed. "Oh no, we'll miss you." But the excitement in her eyes gave her away. She thought she had the perfect window. And that was exactly what I wanted. Because this time, I wasn't just going to wait at home, watching her turn greener by the day. No, this time, I'd set the stage. I'd make sure that when she walked into her secret world, her lies followed her in, glowing brighter than ever that I could already picture it. Her walking into that hotel again, smiling at him, completely unaware that her skin was betraying her in the cruelest, most hilarious way possible. Staff staring, guests whispering, no more hiding behind scarves or excuses, and I'd be right there, watching it all come crashing down. When I told her I had to leave town for 3 nights, she didn't even try to hide her relief. She thought she was careful, that little flicker of excitement flashing across her face before she covered it up with a sigh. "Oh, I'll miss you," she said, brushing her hand against mine. But her eyes told the real story. She couldn't wait for me to be gone. That single moment confirmed everything I needed to know. She was going to use my absence, and I was going to use hers. The morning of my trip, I packed a small bag with clothes, left it in the trunk of my car, and parked a few blocks away from home. From there, I doubled back on foot and slipped inside just as she left. She didn't notice. She was too busy fixing her hair in the hallway mirror, pulling on another scarf to hide the creeping green around her neck. She thought she had the house to herself. She hummed as she packed her purse, stuffing that little bottle of oil inside without hesitation. My chest buzzed with anticipation. She was walking straight into the trap I'd set, and she didn't even know it that I gave her a head start, then slipped out and followed. Not too close, just enough to keep her in sight. Her destination? Exactly where I expected. The hotel. Watching her walk through those glass doors was like watching a movie I'd already seen but couldn't turn away from. She greeted the receptionist with that too bright smile, head high like she was someone important. But even from where I stood, I could see it. The faint shimmer of green peeking from under her makeup. It was worse now, spreading along her jawline. The receptionist's polite smile faltered for a second, her eyes flicking toward my wife's skin that I nearly laughed out loud. She hurried past, clearly aware of the stairs. She was walking faster than usual, clutching her purse like it held her whole world inside. And in a way, it did that. I slipped into the lobby, careful to keep my distance. I pretended to be just another guest, checking my phone, blending in. From the corner of my eye, I saw her step into the elevator with a tall man in gym clothes. The same face I'd glimpsed once in her photos. The so-called trainer. He smiled at her, leaning close. But as the door slid shut, his smile faltered too, because he saw it. The green. Now, I had to fight to keep my composure. The urge to march into that elevator, to call them both out in front of everyone, nearly consumed me. But no, timing was everything. I wasn't there to explode in anger. I was there to watch the lies collapse under their own weight. That I waited in the lobby, pretending to scroll through emails while my mind raced. Would he comment on it? Would she try to explain? Would they even make it through their little rendezvous without the green giving her away completely? An hour passed, then another. I ordered coffee from the cafe, kept my eyes sharp. And then, it happened. The elevator dinged. Out stepped my wife, scarf wrapped high, sunglasses on indoors, clutching her purse like a lifeline. But no disguise could hide it now. Her skin was glowing with streaks of green across her neck, her wrists, even faintly on her cheek. She looked like she'd lost a paintball war. She marched across the lobby, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the curious stares. Guests turned to look, staff exchanged confused glances. And she knew it. Her pace quickened, head down, and she pushed through the doors into the street like she was running from something. But she wasn't running from strangers' stares. She was running from the truth catching up to her. And I was right behind her. By the time she burst out of that hotel, her disguise was barely holding together. The scarf she pulled tight around her neck couldn't cover the blotches of green crawling up her jawline. And no sunglasses in the world could hide the way strangers were staring. That I followed at a distance, careful not to be seen. She rushed into a cab, nearly slamming the door in her panic. I caught the next one, telling the driver to keep some space between us. The entire ride, I could see her shoulders stiff, head tilted down like she was bracing against invisible waves of shame. The cab dropped her at the mall. Bold choice. She must have thought she could buy some miracle product to erase the green before I returned from my trip. I slipped inside after her, weaving through the weekend crowd, never too close, but always close enough. Inside the cosmetics store, she practically attacked the shelves, grabbing bottles, holding them against her skin, asking the sales clerk in a desperate whisper, "Do you have anything that covers discoloration?" The clerk, bless her, tried to be professional, but her eyes betrayed her confusion. She glanced at my wife's neck, then at her arms, then back again. We, we can try a full coverage foundation, she said gently that I lingered by the sunglasses display, pretending to browse, as my wife frantically dabbed samples on her wrist. The green just bled through, staining each shade like it was mocking her efforts. She tossed the bottle back on the counter, muttered something sharp under her breath, and stormed out that I could barely contain my laughter. This wasn't just a prank anymore. It was a live performance, and she was unraveling with every step. Next, she hit the pharmacy. Same routine. She cornered a poor employee in the skincare aisle, demanding remedies, asking if maybe it was a reaction to oils. The worker looked at her like she'd just spoken another language. She left empty-handed, frustration boiling in every stomp of her heels by the time she reached the parking lot. She looked like she was on the verge of tears. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the receipts, the lies, the way she smiled at her phone like it meant more than her family. And the pity vanished. Back home, she locked herself in the bathroom for hours. The sound of water running filled the upstairs hallway, followed by drawers opening, bottles clattering. At one point, I heard her mutter, "Why won't it come off?" Her voice cracked with panic. The kids knocked on the door, asking if she was okay. She cracked the door open just enough to tell them she was just doing a spa day. But they weren't fooled. Later, at dinner, our son asked innocently, "Mom, why do you look like you're sick?" Her fork clattered against the plate. She excused herself and went back upstairs. That night, while she scrubbed herself raw in the bathroom, I sat on the bed, calmly scrolling my phone, pretending to be oblivious. But inside, I was counting down. She was cornered, and she didn't even know it. The walls of her lies were closing in, and soon, she'd have no way out, because tomorrow, she'd have to face more than just curious neighbors or polite sales clerks. She'd have to face her own kids, her friends, and eventually, me. And I was ready by the seventh day. My wife's carefully spun lies were tearing apart at the seams. She wasn't just embarrassed anymore. She was unraveling. Every move she made, every word out of her mouth, screamed desperation. She called in sick to work, something she almost never did. Claimed she had the flu. But I heard her on the phone with her boss, stumbling over her excuses, her voice trembling like a kid caught sneaking out past curfew. The truth was written all over her skin, and no sick day could cover it up that I watched her pace the living room, tugging at her sleeves, biting her nails. She avoided mirrors, avoided me, avoided everyone. Even the kids picked up on it. At breakfast, they whispered to each other, giggling in the way only kids can when they sense something's off. Our daughter finally blurted it out. "Mom, are you turning into the Hulk?" The look on my wife's face was priceless. A mixture of horror, rage, and panic, all twisted together. She snapped back, "Of course not." But her voice cracked. She fled upstairs again, slamming the door behind her. That night, I decided to press the gas pedal. I casually mentioned I might extend my business trip an extra night. Her eyes lit up for a split second, just long enough for me to catch it, before she smoothed her face and muttered, "Oh, sure." It was all the confirmation I needed. She was planning another meeting with him, and this time, I'd be there. The following evening, she dressed like she was going to a red carpet premiere. Hair curled, lipstick carefully applied, scarf wound tightly around her neck to hide the green blotches. She thought she looked perfect. But under the hallway light, I could see the stains bleeding through the layers of makeup, glowing faintly like cracks in a broken mask. She left in a hurry, heels clicking down the driveway. I gave her a few minutes, then slipped into my car and followed. She didn't go to yoga. She didn't go to a friend's house. She drove straight to that same hotel. Again, but this time, something was different. When she stepped inside, the receptionist hesitated, eyes narrowing. My wife fumbled with her ID, keeping her scarf high, muttering about a spa appointment. The receptionist nodded politely, but didn't hide her confusion. It was clear the green tint wasn't just my little secret anymore. I hung back, blending into the lobby crowd. I watched her walk across the polished floor, every step more frantic than the last. People turned their heads, whispered, exchanged looks. It wasn't just me imagining it. Everyone could see something was wrong. And then, like a cruel twist of fate, the man she was meeting, her so-called trainer, stepped out of the elevator to greet her. He froze mid-step. His smile faltered. His eyes locked on the patches of green creeping up her neck. He whispered something sharp, almost scolding. She tugged at her scarf, hissed back, gesturing toward the elevator. They disappeared inside together, but I caught enough to know it wasn't a happy reunion. I stayed put, sipping a coffee in the corner cafe, waiting. My heart thudded with anticipation. Because if I was right, tonight wouldn't just be embarrassing. Tonight would be the moment when her secret world imploded in front of everyone. And I would be there to watch the collapse. When the elevator doors closed behind her and her trainer, I knew things wouldn't stay quiet for long. I could feel it in the air, the way she'd been unraveling, the way his face twisted when he saw her, the way strangers couldn't help but stare. She was on the edge, and one push would send her tumbling. I didn't even have to wait that long. Less than an hour later, the two of them stormed out of the elevator into the lobby. He was walking several steps ahead of her, jaw clenched, eyes dark with frustration. She trailed behind, scarf slipping down, revealing the blotches of green crawling down her neck and onto her chest. He spun on her in the middle of the lobby, his voice low but sharp. "What is wrong with you?" Heads turned. Guests paused mid-step, some pretending not to watch, others openly gawking. My wife stammered something about allergies, waving her hands frantically, trying to adjust her scarf. But her skin betrayed her. It was glowing like some radioactive warning sign. He shook his head, muttered something bitter, and walked straight out of the hotel. Just left her there. Alone, she froze, clutching her purse like it was her last lifeline. For the first time in days, I almost saw a flicker of the woman I used to know. Not the liar, not the actress, but someone terrified, trapped in a mess she couldn't control, almost. But then I remembered the texts, the hotel receipts, the way she laughed into her phone like I didn't exist. And any sympathy I had evaporated. She rushed past the stairs, through the glass doors, and into the street. I followed at a distance, careful to stay hidden. She hailed a cab, climbed in, and I took the next one, giving the driver quick instructions. Back home, she darted into the bathroom again. I didn't need to see her to know what was happening. I could hear the water running, the sound of her scrubbing like she was trying to peel off the guilt itself. But the thing about guilt? You can't wash it off. Later that night, she tried to play normal. She sat at the dinner table with the kids, scarf still on, makeup layered so thick it looked like plaster. But the green shimmer pushed through like cracks in a dam. The kids whispered and giggled, asking again if she was turning into a superhero. She snapped, slamming her fork down so hard it rattled the table. "Enough," she barked. The kids went silent, wide-eyed. I sat back, arms folded, letting the silence stretch. She realized what she'd done, tried to backpedal, forcing a shaky laugh. "Sorry, Mommy's just tired." But the damage was done. That night, after the kids were asleep, she locked herself in the bedroom. I heard her pacing, whispering on the phone again, probably begging her trainer for answers, for comfort, for anything. But judging by the sharp tone of her voice and the way she eventually tossed her phone onto the bed, I guessed he wasn't giving her much sympathy. Her world was crumbling piece by piece, and she knew it. And me? I was done just watching. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind already piecing together the final act. Tomorrow, I'd confront her. Tomorrow, the lies would be dragged into the light, not just with whispers, not just with green stains, but with every receipt, every date, every unanswered question laid bare. Tomorrow would be the end. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee steaming in front of me, a folder resting on the wood. Inside were the receipts, the phone bill printouts, and the photos I'd taken with my phone. Every detail of her double life neatly stacked, waiting. When she finally stumbled downstairs, wrapped in yet another scarf, her face pale beneath the cracks of makeup, she froze. Her eyes locked on the folder. "What's that?" she asked, voice tight. I didn't answer at first. I let the silence hang between us, heavy as stone. Then I pushed the folder toward her. "Go ahead. Open it." She hesitated, then slid the papers out. The color drained from her face. What little color wasn't already green, anyway? Receipts from the hotel. Screenshots of her call logs. Dates circled on the family calendar, all lined up perfectly with her late nights. Her hands shook. This isn't what it looks like." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Really? Because it looks exactly like what I've been suspecting for weeks. It looks like you sneaking off with him. It looks like lies. It looks like betrayal. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She tried to pull the scarf tighter, but even that betrayed her. The green marks creeping up her jaw, glowing under the morning light spilling through the window that I stood, towering over her. Do you even realize what you look like right now? You can't cover it anymore. Not the green, not the lies. Everyone can see it. Tears welled in her eyes. She stammered, grasping for excuses. It's not like that, I swear. He's just helping me. It's not helping you at a hotel? At midnight? With bottles of oil in your purse? My voice cut through hers like a blade. Stop lying. Just stop. She broke then. Shoulders slumped, tears streaming down her cheeks, mascara streaking black lines over the faint green patches. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. I didn't want to hurt you. That line, that pathetic, tired line. I'd read it 100 times in stories online, but hearing it in my own kitchen, it made my blood boil. You didn't want to hurt me? I said, slamming my hand on the table so hard she jumped. You've been lying for months. You dragged this family through the mud. You made me doubt myself, question my sanity. And you didn't want to hurt me? The kids stirred upstairs. I lowered my voice, steady but firm. This ends now. The lies, the sneaking around, the fake stories. It's over. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. For the first time, I wasn't the one clinging. I wasn't the one begging. I was done. I'll be calling a lawyer, I said flatly. We'll figure out what happens next with the kids. But you and me? We're finished. Her face crumpled. She slid down into the chair, covering her face with her hands, sobbing. The green stains on her wrists peeked out, mocking her, a perfect symbol of everything she'd tried to hide. And me? For the first time in months, I felt free. Not angry, not broken. Free that I turned, walked upstairs, and hugged my kids tight as they blinked sleepily at me. Downstairs, her muffled sobs echoed through the house, mixing with the morning birds outside that IT was over. The days after the confrontation were strangely quiet. My wife moved through the house like a shadow, avoiding my eyes, hiding her green-stained skin beneath sleeves and scarves. The lies that once flowed so easily from her mouth were gone. She didn't even try anymore. The silence between us said everything words couldn't. It didn't take long before we sat down with lawyers. The process wasn't easy, but I was calmer than I'd ever been. For months, I'd been the one doubting myself, feeling like the crazy one. Now, I had the truth, and I had control. For once, I wasn't trapped in her games. The kids, surprisingly, adjusted faster than I thought. They were young enough to laugh at the idea of their mom looking like a superhero, and they didn't need the details. All they needed was love, stability, and honesty. That, I could give them today. Yes, for me. I started rebuilding. Piece by piece that I signed up for the gym. Not the fake yoga kind my wife used as an excuse, but real workouts. I picked up old hobbies I'd let die in the routine of marriage. I spent weekends hiking with my kids, cooking new recipes, and slowly remembered what it felt like to live for myself again. And you know what? It felt good. Better than I ever imagined. Sure, the betrayal stung. It still does when I think about it. But the green stains that once embarrassed her became a strange kind of blessing for me. Because without them, I might still be doubting. Still be stuck in limbo. Still clinging to someone who had already left me in her heart. The prank wasn't just about catching her. It was about waking myself up. About proving that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts were right, and that I deserved better. Now, months later, I can finally say I'm happier. My kids are thriving. My house is filled with laughter again, not secrets and tension. And me? I'm stronger than I've been in years. Looking back, I wonder, did I do the right thing? Was it too much? Too little? Some people might say I should have confronted her sooner. Others might say I should have walked away without a word. But here's the truth. I don't regret how it happened. Not one bit. Because that one harmless prank exposed everything, without me even needing to shout. So let me ask you, did I do the right thing? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? And hey, if you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and tell me, what would you have done in my place?